When looking at the future for every NFL franchise, I like to look at a few things. When you're building a Super Bowl contending team in the future, when you're building yourselves to be contenders for the long term, when you're trying to be the next dynasty, is what I'm saying here. You need to start with a GM. You need a GM that knows how to draft and develop players. You need a GM who is good at who can hit on his draft picks. I mean, that's a no-brainer right there, and is able to make risky trades that often work in his favor. You need a head coach that knows how to work with players, then a head coach that knows how to run an offense, a head coach that knows how to build a relationship and rally up all of his guys. That's really the foundation of building a dynasty. Pretty much is where you need to start right there. After that, you need a franchise quarterback. Desmond Ritter, Malik Willis. Other than that, don't see a whole lot of franchise quarterbacks in this draft class. But we're going to be taking a look at NFL franchises' future for every team. So if we go on over to our screen right here, we have a little tier list, and this is what I've been doing a little bit of it in this kind of dead zone between NFL free agency first wave and the draft. Is we're kind of making our tier list and making predictions for the future. And here are all 32 franchises. We're going to start off with the Cincinnati Bengals, kind of in no particular order right here. Bengals are a perfect example of exactly what you want your team to be right now. They have a great Mike Brown is an amazing GM right now. He completely turned their team around. Zach Taylor is one of the best head coaches as of right now, as he's ran this Bengals offense this last season. And also, they've drafted very well. They've drafted very well. And Joe Burrow has Joe Burrow's their franchise guy. He showed that he's going to be their guy for the next decade to come. So they kind of set their foundation in order to be contenders for some time now. On top of that, a lot of young talent to be excited about on the Bengals team. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon, Jonah Williams at left tackle as well. Very underrated left tackle right there. I know their offensive line is garbage, but on top of that, he's a great left tackle. When he's healthy, defense, not a whole lot to be excited about on defense, but Bengals, they'll be in a good position to keep swinging on defensive players in free agency and upcoming drafts. So there's kind of a perfect example of what setting a foundation for your NFL franchise is right now, as they got some real hits in the draft. Next up, Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks are one of those teams who have a great coaching staff, amazing GM, in my opinion. Yeah, but they don't have a quarterback right now. Drew Lock's not going to be their franchise guy. They're not in a good position to just simply draft a quarterback in this next draft class and hope that it can work out. On top of that, Pete Carroll's 70 years old now? I mean, their regime is kind of getting older, and we don't know how their future is going to look. But with that being said, they do have they do pick ninth overall, and they have 2 draft picks in 2023. So in the future, in the next couple drafts, they should be swinging on a quarterback. We're going to throw them into C tier for when it comes to looking at the future for the Seattle Seahawks, because as of right now, yeah, you don't know. You don't know how many years Pete Carroll got left in him, and you don't know who the franchise quarterback's going to be. So we're going to throw him right into the middle. Next up, we have the New York Giants. These teams are going to be hard to rank here, who have a new GM and new head coach. Joe Schoen felt like the right signing for GM. And oh my gosh, Brian Dable is one of the best head coaching signings of this offseason. So for that reason, I think they have a bright future. But here's the thing. Daniel Jones going on to contract year. They talked about how Daniel Jones is their guy. They say that they're not looking for a new quarterback. You gotta look for a new quarterback. Daniel Jones was never worth a 6th overall draft pick. Never lived up to that draft pick and never will. I'm gonna throw him into C tier because they have to look to. I might even throw him. No, I like their signings. I'm throwing him into C tier. I like the signing of Joe Schoen and Brian Dable. When it comes to the Giants right now, I believe they have to embrace the rebuild, trade away Saquon Barkley, trade away Kenny Galladay. Trade away James Bradbury. If you can get 3 first-round draft picks for him from the Chiefs, you can get those 2 late-round draft picks that they have, and then a future one. You can get 3 first-round draft picks from the Chiefs. Trade away James Bradbury, embrace the rebuild, and go for a new dynasty for the Giants, because it's time. It's time for them to look for a new quarterback. I know Daniel Jones got 1 year to prove himself. Yeah, let's be honest. It's not going to happen. This last year was the best chance that he had at really proving himself in the league. Now, maybe Brian Dable will actually make him work. It's possible. Putting them in C tier for now because they don't have a lock at their quarterback. Next up, we have the Houston Texans. Houston Texans are a weird team because here's the thing with the Texans. They're by far the worst team in the league right now. They have an awful roster. They need starters at every positions. Seems like everybody on that team is just backups at this point. But that can be a good thing, because when you think about it, I can't put the Houston Texans in a low tier because those are more mid-tier teams. Those are the teams that are great now that you have to put in D and F tier, because it's going to kind of help the Texans to be an awful team. In the future, they're going to be in a good spot to take another quarterback if they have to, assuming Davis Mills isn't actually their guy. They're going to have to take new players in the upcoming draft. I mean, as of right now, they're kind of a hard team to rank, as Nick Caserio, second year GM, Lovie Smith, their new head coach. Don't know how these guys are going to look right now. Felt like the Lovie Smith signing was a little bit of a reach. A lot of in-house signings I don't understand. But on top of that, Davis Mills looks like he's got a bright future. On top of that, they got so many draft picks from the Deshaun Watson trade. I'm putting them into B tier because they're going to be in a good position to take a quarterback in this upcoming draft, in the next two upcoming drafts. They have 11 picks in this draft, including picking 3rd overall and 13th overall, and 2 future first rounders from Cleveland. For that reason, 4 first rounders in the next couple of drafts. Yeah, they're a B tier team when you're looking at it, because they're in a good position to start taking new players. And also, they should trade away Brandon Cooks. I don't know why Texans fans are arguing they shouldn't trade away Brandon Cooks, as by the time the Texans are good, Brandon Cooks is not going to be good anymore. Trade the man away, embrace your rebuild, just like I believe all of these teams should just embrace their rebuild and trade their players away. Next up, Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles, Howie Roseman is like the most risky GM in all of football, I believe. The guy makes some crazy draft picks. Some of them are massive hits. Some of them are massive misses. Jalen Reagor. But on top of that, the guy's made some ballsy trades. I'm going to be honest. That guy's got some balls. And also bringing in one of their best signings out of the last few seasons was Darius Slay, bringing him into their defense. But yeah, the guys had some questionable moves, and some moves work out, some don't. But I do like Howie Roseman all in all as a GM. Nick Sirianni has showed that he can make Jalen Hurts work onto that offense. Jalen Hurts looks like their franchise guy right now. Now we have to see one more year of him starting to see really how he can look in the future, because and then on top of that, I like Dallas Goedert. I like Devontae Smith. I like a lot of their young players. I'm going to go ahead and put the Eagles in A tier. They have a lot of draft picks in the upcoming draft class. Yes, I know Jalen Reagor was a terrible draft pick, but they still have enough draft capital in order to take another wide receiver. As of right now, they have 2 picks in the first round, picking 15th and 18th, and they have 2 first-round picks in 2023. So 4 first-round picks in the next 2 draft classes, and they're a good young team. They're a very good young team right now, and should be owning their division in a few years' time, assuming Jalen Hurts works out. I like Howie Roseman as a GM. He's got some balls, and I like Nick Sirianni as a head coach. He showed that he can make Jalen Hurts work. Not Jalen Reagor. He cannot make Jalen Reagor work. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons, man, can you ever say something good about the Falcons? It's so hard to say something good about the Falcons. D tier. I'm sorry. Falcons, first of all, we don't completely know how their regime's going to look right now. I mean, their new GM is going into his second year. They got a head coach going into his second year, Arthur Smith. And then on top of that, Marcus Mariota, we don't know how he's going to look. We really have no idea with this Falcons team, but it's not looking good. Outside of that, they do have some young players to really be excited about. Obviously, Kyle Pitts being one of the best tight ends to enter the draft class in a long time, going into his second year. AJ Terrell, I will actually argue that AJ Terrell, he's arguably the best corner in the game. So there's some young talent to be excited about with Atlanta. But all in all, as long as you don't have your GM, head coach, and quarterback positions locked down, I can't put you high on this tier list. I've said many times, you need a GM that knows how to make good trades, that knows how to draft players, a head coach that can rally up his team, a head coach that can run an offense or a defense, and a quarterback who can be your franchise guy for the next decade, which the Falcons right now, they don't have any of that. And like I said, we don't really know how Marcus Mariota, Arthur Smith, and dude's going to look as GM. Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs are a hard one because no, they're not hard. They're S tier. They are S tier team right now when you're looking at it. They have one of the best GMs in all of football. They have one of the best, if not the best, head coach in Andy Reid. They have arguably the best quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, who has another decade left in him. Yeah, that's a S tier team. When you have the GM, head coach, and quarterback positions locked down, you're good. And they've done a great job building around Patrick Mahomes in the last couple of years as well. Obviously, trading away Tyreek Hill, that might benefit them in the future. I'm going to be honest, it might, because they're moving their money to offensive line. But bringing in Orlando Brown, Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney has completely changed their offensive line. Drafting Mecole Hardman, he stepped in as a starter recently. On top of that, they've really done a great job building around Patrick Mahomes. But people kind of overlook how many needs the Chiefs actually have. I know they were played in the AFC Championship game this last year, in the last 3 years for that example, but yeah, they don't have great corners. They don't have amazing wide receivers. They have a lot of needs. But with that being said, when you have your GM, head coach, and quarterback, I'm putting you in S tier because let's be honest, players are going to want to play with the Chiefs. They're going to continue to take pay cuts to go play with the Chiefs, and I have faith that the Chiefs are going to be good in some years to come. They also have 2 first-round draft picks this year, where they can either combine those draft picks and trade up, or just sit there and take corners and wide receivers. We're going to have to wait and see. Chicago Bears are next on this list. Bears are another hard team to sign, just like the Giants. They have a new GM and new head coach. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus. Also with the Giants, I believe they're kind of questionable signings. I like Brian Poles as a GM. This Eberflus guy, don't know why you brought him in, as he's not going to completely work with Jalen Hurts. With Justin Fields. But with that being said, Justin Fields has shown some promise in his rookie season, and yeah, he can be the franchise guy for some years to come. I'm going to throw him into C tier. Not a big fan of their new head coaching signing. Justin Fields has shown some promise in his first rookie season. But how are you going to build around Justin Fields right now? You're giving him no offensive weapons. Their best target for Justin Fields right now is Darnell Mooney. That's their best target. They just lost all their offensive playmakers at tight end and wide receiver. I mean, what else is there to be excited about for the Bears? Their offensive line is also completely garbage. Not only that, but their offensive line is old. Next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders. I've been very high on the Raiders. I love the signings that they've made. Now they do have a new GM and new head coach, so we're going to have to kind of see how this works. With that being said, Derek Carr, people underestimate how great of a quarterback Derek Carr actually is. He's an excellent leader. He's led this team. He rallies up his team year after year. The guy stays healthy. He has an amazing rocket arm. What else is there to ask for a quarterback? Derek Carr is the most underrated quarterback in all of football. Derek Carr slandered has got to go. That is not allowed. And they've done a great job on kind of giving him some more help on the offensive line and giving him some more targets, trading for Devontae Adams. We're going to throw the Raiders actually in A tier for when it comes to the future for their team, just because I love a lot of the moves that they've made. Still a big fan of Darren Waller. He should be there for the next 4 or 5 years as one of the best tight ends in the league. I do like Colton Miller at left tackle as well, so they have a lot of young players on that offense to really be excited about. And their defense is a good mix between veterans and young guys, so definitely a fan of what the Raiders have done. Now, it's going to be questionable on how they're going to rank against other AFC West teams, or AFC teams in general for that matter. But as of right now, I like how the Raiders have handled it, and they should be contenders for some time now. So again, we don't really know what to expect completely from their new regime, but still, big fan of what the Raiders have done. Next up, Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns are the youngest team in all of football. Not only that, but they're one of the best now. And I'm going to throw them into A tier for that. The Cleveland Browns fans have to be ecstatic about this offseason, making a great trade for Amari Cooper and a good trade for Deshaun Watson. If Deshaun Watson's actually able to play, that will end up being one of the best trades out of the last 5 years. Of the 2020s in general. I just don't see Deshaun Watson having a bad career if he's able to play. The guy's young, he stays healthy, and he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in all of football. And on top of that, I like Andrew Berry as their GM. He's done a great job. I like Kevin Stefanski as their head coach. Obviously, big Kevin Stefanski guy as a Vikings fan. Deshaun Watson, one of the most talented quarterbacks. Now bringing in Amari Cooper, still in his prime, will probably be there for the next decade. On top of that, there's a lot of stars on that offense and defense that Browns fans should really be excited about. Their offensive line is one of the best. Now, it's a little old, but so we'll have to see how their offensive line is going to happen, kind of pan out going forward. Outside of Jedrick Wills, he's a young guy, but outside of that, when you're looking at Wyatt Teller, Joel Bettino, yeah, it's a relatively old offensive line, but the defense, a lot of young players to be excited about all around the board, especially that JOK guy, one of the most underrated rookies this last season. Next up, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals, if it was 1 year ago today, I would have thrown the Cardinals in S tier. Yeah, they've kind of fallen apart. I mean, I just don't know how the Cardinals couldn't own their division this last season. I thought the Cardinals were by far the best team in the NFC West and could have been a Super Bowl contender this last season. I was surprised that they weren't. Now, what is the problem? Is Cliff Kingsbury now on the hot seat? I'm going to put the Cardinals in C tier. They're an old team too. They have Zach Ertz, JJ Watt starting. What year is it? What are the Cardinals doing? I don't understand a lot of the moves that they've made, and it's a pretty old team. I mean, even D-Hop's going into his 30s now. Their offensive line is old. A lot of their offensive weapons outside of Rondell Moore is old. yeah, they have their quarterback, but outside of that, is really anybody's position locked down? Their GM, he's been their GM since like 2013, I believe, so he's going to continue to be there. Cliff Kingsbury being on the hot seat, Kyler Murray requesting a trade, or kind of hinting at a trade. I don't want to say he's requesting a trade, but what they haven't done is give Kyler Murray an extension yet. He still is due for a contract extension, and they have yet to do it. So the Cardinals are kind of like in this little predicament, is what people would say right now, where we really don't know how their franchise is going to turn out in the next 5 years, and how they're going to be competitors for the future. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in C tier right now. Don't like a lot of the moves that they've made. A lot of draft picks that they've invested into their defense has not worked out. Isaiah Simmons has been a massive bust, or so far. I mean, he still has a lot of his career ahead of him. Byron Murphy still not as great as he was his rookie season. Buda Baker is still amazing. It's Buda Baker. But outside of that, there's just not a lot to be excited about when you're looking at that Cardinals team right now. They're an old team. I'm putting them in C tier. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts. Talk about an old win now team. Indianapolis Colts, I'm putting them in D tier. When you're looking at future, I want to make sure I'm looking at 5-6 years time. With the Indianapolis Colts right now, Chris Ballard, great GM. Frank Reich, solid head coach. Matt Ryan has 3 more years left in him? Matt Ryan's on the final chapter of his career. This guy, I'm putting him in D tier when you're looking at the future, because I just don't see this team lasting very long. They have arguably the best running back in Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, running backs play 6 years? They're in their prime for the first 4 years of their career. I'm looking at the future for their team, and they're going to be getting a lot of bad draft picks in the future. So they have no first round draft pick this year, so they're kind of screwed when it comes to taking a wide receiver right now. Michael Pittman's going to end up being their starting wide receiver this next year. Defense is a good mix between young guys and veterans. I'm putting them in D tier just because I don't see this regime with the Indianapolis Colts lasting for very long. And for that reason, they're in D tier when you're looking at future for the NFL franchise. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens, I absolutely love this team. I'm going to put them in B tier. I love their GM. I love their head coach. I love their quarterback. What else is there to say? And they have right now, the Ravens are kind of a dark horse Super Bowl contender. And one of the biggest questions is how long Lamar Jackson is actually going to be Lamar Jackson. How long is he a Super Bowl contending quarterback? How long is he going to be their franchise guy? His longevity is kind of an issue, but that's not as much of an issue right now as it was 1 year ago, because now they have Tyler Huntley. I mean, Lamar Jackson goes down with the injury. You throw Huntley out there, he's basically Lamar Jackson Jr. at this point. So John Harbaugh has done a great job. They have a great track record of drafting. I mean, I just like the Ravens. I like the way they've handled it. Plus, they have a lot of young guys. Marquise Brown. Mark Andrews is still pretty young. J.K. Dobbins. I mean, Rashad Bateman. They have a lot of young guys to work with on that offense to be excited about. And honestly, that defense is top 7 when they're healthy. And that's been the biggest problem with the Ravens, is being able to stay healthy. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills. Now, they've just brought Stephon Diggs back, and he's going to probably end his career there. We're going to put him in A tier. I just like what the Bills have done. I really like what the Bills have done. They have a great GM and head coach, which, like I said, is very important. They completely turned that Bills team around, took them from one of the worst in the league to Super Bowl contenders in just a few years. Hats off to Sean McDermott and that GM. Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, will play there for the next decade. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say here, and they have a lot of great offensive playmakers, young offensive playmakers in Dawson Knox, Gabriel Davis. Stephon Diggs is obviously going to be there for the next 5 years. So there's a lot to be excited about with that Bills offense right now. And they should be some competitors for some time now. And on defense is also a good mix between young guys and veterans, which is very important when you're looking at the future, how the next people up pretty much. And I like the Buffalo Bills. I like the way they've done it. I'm putting them in A tier because I think they're going to be contenders for some time now. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys, everybody's least favorite or favorite team. Dallas Cowboys, first of all, Jerry Jones is a questionable GM. Let's be honest. Mike McCarthy is a questionable head coach, and now he's on the hot seat as of right now. The coaching staff is still pretty good. Dak Prescott Dak Prescott might be entering the final chapter of his career. Injuries have completely ruined him and make him fall apart. I believe Dak Prescott's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Don't get me wrong, but injuries are kind of setting him back and start. Even Zeke is kind of entering the end of his career, as running backs don't last very long. I don't know with the Cowboys. I'm going to just go ahead and put them in C tier. They have a lot of young players to be excited about. Obviously with CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, Trevon Diggs. There's a lot of young players to really be excited about on that Dallas Cowboys team. Young stars to be excited about. And should be there for some time now. With that being said, Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy in the hot seat. Dak Prescott might be entering the end of his career. The guy's I believe he's in his 30s now, and now you're looking at his injury concerns as well. His longevity is kind of an issue, so I'm going to put them in C tier when you're looking at the future for the Dallas Cowboys. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions, who were always in a good position to rebuild and seem to always fail. Detroit Lions right now with their new GM, new head coach, signed as of 2021, with Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell look like good signings. Dan Campbell was honestly one of the best head coaches of the last year. I know the Lions had a bad season, but Dan Campbell did a good job. We'll give him credit. We'll give credit where credit is due. With that being said, they don't have their head coach or their quarterback right now. Jared Goff is not going to be their franchise quarterback, maybe the most overpaid quarterback in all of football. So they have to find their quarterback next. We're going to put him in C tier. Got to see more from the GM and head coach. Obviously, they still did finish with a terrible record. Got to see more. But with that being said, they have a lot of young players on that offense that are excited, that you should be excited about when you're looking at DeAndre Swift, TJ Hawkinson. You can even throw Amon-Ra St. Brown into the mix and their entire offensive line. Detroit Lions, I mean, they have one of the best offensive lines in football, and we seem to forget that. We're putting them in C tier. Next up, we have the Denver Broncos. Denver Broncos, one of my favorite teams right now when you're looking at it. I'm putting the Denver Broncos in S tier when it comes to their future. Okay, here's the thing. George Paton, second-year GM, completely changed that team. George Paton has been a great GM for the Denver Broncos and much better than John Elway. Sorry, John Elway fans. And then also Nathaniel Hackett, their new head coach. Love the hire. 10 out of 10 hire, if you ask me. Russell Wilson, franchise quarterback. Russell Wilson might be like 34 years old. He's going to play for the next 6 years, 7 years. The guy's going to play into his 40s. He's a very durable quarterback, and he's likely going to play into his 40s if he wants to, as long as he doesn't retire early. And then on top of that, their entire offense, when it comes to the skilled position players, are all young. Javonte Williams going on to his second year. Jerry Jeudy going on to his third year. Tim Patrick, Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler. So there's a lot of young players in that offense to work with, to where they should be competitors for some time now. I really like Javonte Williams as a running back. Their defense is mostly old, but they do have some younger guys like Pat Surtain to be excited about going forward. Next up, we have the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers, when looking at the future for the team, okay, so Brian, this new GM has done he's had some questionable drafts. This new GM for them hasn't really given Aaron Rodgers the help that he needs. Matt LaFleur has been a great head coach for them, but the biggest thing is like how much longer is Aaron Rodgers going to be playing? I mean, he's going into his 40s pretty soon, and the guy, it seems like every year we're talking about him possibly retiring. When it comes to the Packers, looking at the future for their team, I'm going to put them in D tier. Just because I believe the Packers, they're going to have terrible draft picks because they're going to continue to be a good enough team to not have good draft picks. And Aaron Rodgers' contract's going to continue to hit, so they're not going to be able to afford some of these players and bring back some of these guys. I'm putting the Packers in D tier when you're looking at the future for their team, simply because I just don't see this team lasting for very long when you're looking at it right now, especially with how bad their GM has drafted, in my opinion. I think he's been terrible at drafting. Now, they have turned that defense around, and their secondary is one of the best in the league when healthy, and they seem to all be young guys as well when looking at Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Rasul Douglas, and then you also got Darnell Savage. So some young guys on that secondary that have really kind of turned that Packers defense around. It was terrible a few years ago, and now it's one of the best in the league when healthy. Carolina Panthers next on this list. I'm going to go ahead and put the Panthers in F tier. The first F tier team when it comes to the future for their franchise. First of all, their second-year GM doesn't have a whole lot to look forward to. They have one draft pick in the first couple days of this draft, and that's picking like 6th overall, where they could be looking to get a quarterback, maybe take the quarterback off the board first. Their GM's on the hot seat. Matt Rule's on the hot seat. Sam Darnold on the hot seat. The guy's on the final year maybe of his career. So they have really no foundation set for their future for their team. Nothing to really be excited about. Christian McCaffrey on the final chapter of his career. You can say the same about Robbie Anderson and just about that entire offense looking at it right now. Curtis Samuel's no longer with them. I mean, is DJ Moore really all? DJ Moore can't carry your team when you're looking at the future. And then on the defensive side of the ball, they do have some players to be really excited about, especially in the secondary. But again, I mean, if you don't have your GM, head coach, and quarterback, none of that matters. None of that matters. That's how you set a foundation, and you have to build around your quarterback. And that's what the Panthers are not being able to do right now. They pick in the first round, 6th overall, maybe get a quarterback, and then they don't pick until the 4th round. For that reason, I have them in F tier. Jacksonville Jaguars, once again, 1st overall draft pick. We're going to put the future for the Jaguars franchise. I know it's a new team. We're putting them right into A tier. I believe they've completely played their cards correctly, bringing in a new GM, or actually not a new GM. This Trent guy has been with them for some time now. I believe he's one of the more underrated GMs, if you ask me. But bringing in a new head coach, Doug Peterson. Even though Trevor Lawrence is coming off his rookie season, this will really be Trevor Lawrence's first season in the league, as now Urban Meyer's not coaching for him, and now he actually has help on the offensive line and players to throw to. And maybe he can finally read a defense now. So Trevor Lawrence going into his second year, I expect him to finally actually start his career now. As the rookie season, we'll just forget that happened. And this can kind of help him out getting that first overall draft pick, and they can be picking first in all the rounds. So this will definitely help out the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like the Doug Peterson signing and building around Trevor Lawrence. They've done a great job. So with that being said, I believe A tier for the Jacksonville Jaguars when you're looking at the future. Jaguars fans, I know there's not many of you, but you should be excited about your team. Next up, we have the LA Rams. Looking at the future for the LA Rams, I know they're coming off of a Super Bowl. I'm putting them in F tier when you're looking at the future for the team, because look, let's be honest right now. First of all, LA Rams, they have no draft picks. Les Snead has completely salvaged their entire future for their franchise, and rightfully so. I mean, they won a Super Bowl out of it by all the trades that they've made for players like Jalen Ramsey, for players like Matthew Stafford. They brought in they just bring in Bobby Wagner and Allen Robinson, so they're still going to be competitors as of right now. But looking at the future for the Rams, it's not there. It's not. They have what, like 4 draft picks in this year's draft. But on top of that, Sean McVay has contemplated retirement, and the guy will likely retire after the season, if it was my guess. Matthew Stafford is aging, going into his 30s now. I give Matthew Stafford max 5 years left. On top of it, I believe the LA Rams will still be contenders and maybe win their division next year. But when you're looking at the future for the team, just about everybody is retiring and aging players right now. Aaron Donald has contemplated retirement. Bobby Wagner, aging. Jalen Ramsey, aging, but he's still in his prime, obviously. Leonard Floyd is going into his 30s. So there's really not a whole lot to be excited about. They don't pick until draft pick 104. So yeah, everybody aging on that team. Don't expect the Rams to be contenders in the next in the future. Maybe this next season, but not in the future. Next up, New England Patriots. Talk about a team to never, ever count out. Okay, New England Patriots right now, maybe the best GM and head coach combination in all of football. They've built one of the best dynasties ever in sports history. We're going to honestly put them in C tier right now. And this simply because I just don't know how longer Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick are going to be the GM and head coach. I will still argue Bill Belichick's the best head coach in football. Robert Kraft has built some of the best rosters in NFL history. Looking at the future for the team, with Robert Kraft going into his 80s, Bill Belichick going into his 70s, when are these people going to retire? Are they going to just coach until they're dead? Maybe. I see Bill Belichick coaching until he's dead. With that being said, I'm putting him in C tier just because I don't know how much longer this regime's going to last with the Patriots right now. And they're slowly collapsing really right now. Patriots, I believe, as of right now, they're the oldest team in all of football, which is not where you want to be when you're looking at the future. I know they have Mac Jones, who came off of his rookie year, was arguably the best rookie quarterback this last season behind Davis Mills. Sorry, I'm a Davis Mills guy. We'll put him behind Davis Mills when you're looking at rookie seasons. But again, with that, I just don't see the Patriots being anything crazy in the future when you're looking at it. Unless if Bill Belichick actually coaches until he's dead. Bill Belichick would coach until he's 85. Watch that happen. I would be okay with that. I love watching Bill Belichick. I like the guy so much. I love his press conferences and everything about that guy. Next, we have the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints, Mickey Loomis, been their GM since what, 2002? I mean, the guy's been there for some time now. He's been through all the ups and downs of the Saints and just never can get over the hump, other than 2009 season where they cheated against the Vikings. But other than that, New Orleans Saints completely collapsed, and I love it. The New Orleans Saints absolutely fell apart this last month in March, and right now, looking at it, bringing in a new head coach, Dennis Allen, and now they're kind of looking for a new quarterback in this draft class, as they recently made a trade with the Eagles. Yeah, pretty old team. Pretty old team on both sides of the ball. Cam Jordan now going into his 30s. No, already 33. Demario Davis, 34. They got some old players in that team. Alvin Kamara is now kind of entering the age where we see running backs completely fall apart, especially with Kamara. I honestly believe this might be Kamara's last real season in NFL this next year, as he suffered with injuries, and he's kind of a smaller back when you're looking at running backs. So yeah, for that reason, I might put the Saints in D tier. They don't have their quarterback yet. Jameis Winston is not going to be the quarterback of the future. Taysom Hill won't be as well. They're kind of looking for a new quarterback right now. We're going to put them in D tier until they finally hit on a quarterback. Next up, we have the New York Jets. New York Jets, GM, Joe Douglas, okay, fine with the guy. He's been very unlucky. I'm going to be honest. I haven't hated a lot of his draft picks. He's just been very unlucky with like Sam Darnold and everybody. Robert Saleh, I do like Robert Saleh. He needs to rally up that team. Zach Wilson, obviously, we need to see so much more from Zach Wilson than we saw his rookie season. But they've done what they can to really build around Zach Wilson in free agency. I'm going to go ahead and put the Jets in C tier. You got to see more from the regime. You got to see more from GM and head coach and quarterback. So for that reason, we're putting them in C tier. But I like a lot of the young players that they've brought in Michael Carter, Elijah Moore, bringing in Tyler Conklin, bringing in CJ Ozema. They brought in a lot of young guys for Zach Wilson to work with. So for that reason, I'm putting them in C tier. Also, Corey Davis, you can throw him in the mix as well. So I'm liking the decisions that they've made. They've made the right decisions in my opinion. And that's why I'm a big Joe Douglas fan. I like the decisions that he's made. But it's the Jets. They're kind of cursed and we got to see more. So we're going to put them in C tier. Miami Dolphins actually now might be a Super Bowl contender. Can you believe that? The Dolphins, I just can't believe how Dolphins Bills can go from one of the worst teams in the league and maybe arguably the worst at one point in a few years being Super Bowl contenders. We're going to put them in B tier though. We're going to put them in B tier because we have to see more from the Dolphins. First of all, I think the Tyreek Hill trade was dumb for the Dolphins. I think they gave up way too much for Tyreek Hill, and then making him the highest paid receiver was just idiotic. It was just not smart for the Dolphins, in my opinion, especially in this upcoming draft class when you can find a wide receiver to play alongside Jalen Waddle and really be able to work with them. Now, with that being said, a lot of the signings that they made was the correct signings in order to build around Tua. I like Jalen Waddle. I like Mike Gesicki. They have young stars all over their defense. They should be competitors for some time now. Mike McDaniel, new head coach they just brought in. We're going to have to see what he can do. I'm not as high on Mike McDaniel as a lot of fans might be, but again, it all comes down to Tua. Can Tua stay healthy? When he's healthy, he shows promise. But that's when he's healthy. And he's healthy, a third of every season. So we got to see more from the Dolphins. And that's why I'm putting them in B tier, because I do believe that they're going to be contenders. We just got to see what they can do when healthy. So for that reason, I'm putting them in B. Next up, Pittsburgh Steelers, arguably the best coaching staff in all of football and arguably the best at drafting. For that reason, you can't put the Steelers in anything less than B tier. They have one of the best coaching staffs and have a great track record of drafting. Just an amazing, amazing GM and head coach right there. That's why I'm putting him in B tier. Mitchell Trubisky, oh, he's terrible. He's not going to be great. I understand that. But when you're looking at the Steelers, they're likely going to draft a quarterback and it's going to work anyways. I have no doubts that they draft a quarterback like Desmond Ridder and he ends up being a star. Steelers is exactly where you should want to play if you're a quarterback. Think about just Ben Roethlisberger. If Ben Roethlisberger didn't go to the Steelers, probably would have never been a Hall of Famer. They just have a great coaching staff and are great at developing players. For that reason, I have them in B tier. And there's a lot of young stars to be excited about when you're looking at Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth, a lot of playmakers for Trubisky to work with. And I think Trubisky, honestly, he's a fine bridge quarterback for the Steelers. I think if Trubisky went to another team like Detroit, his career would have went to die. But him going to the Steelers is a different story. And I'm going to put him in B tier just because I love their coaching staff. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers, obviously A tier. When you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert, who's going onto his third season and is already one of the best in the league, I can't put them in anything less than A tier. Their coaching staff has done a great job. Telesco has completely turned that team around. Brandon Staley going into his second year, coming off of a year where he just missed the playoffs, now is probably going to want it even more. So we'll see them run it back probably. And then also Justin Herbert, obviously they found the franchise quarterback. They do need a lot of new young players on that team. It's a pretty old team when you're looking at the Chargers. Asante Samuel, we'll see what he can do. We'll see what JC Jackson can do on that offense. Don't know why they traded for Khalil Mack. I've said that is a stupid trade in my opinion. Joey Bosa, we'll give him 2 more years in his prime. But all in all, they need to add some more players onto that defense who can stop the run, add some players onto that secondary, and give Justin Herbert some more targets. Maybe give him some targets that aren't over the age of 28. So we'll have to see what they can do going forward. But they've built a great foundation for the future, and that's really what I'm looking for in S and A tier teams for the future. Next up, San Francisco 49ers, another team that's built an amazing foundation. I love the 49ers coaching staff. John Lynch is a great GM for them. Kyle Shanahan is one of the best head coaches in all of football. We're going to have to see what Trey Lance can do. Drafted 3rd overall, we'll see what he can do, but we'll go ahead and put the 49ers into the B tier. I just like the foundation that they've built. As of right now, we don't know really what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo. We're assuming that he's not going to be their quarterback going forward. We're going to assume that they're going to build around Trey Lance here. For that reason, we have to see what Trey Lance can do in the future. But again, that offensive line might be old, but that offense is amazing. Deebo Samuel, one of the best receivers in all of football. Eli Mitchell is coming off of an amazing rookie season. Even Brandon Ayuk has shown a lot of promise. So there's a lot to be excited about when you're looking at young stars on that 49ers team. They need to add more players to the offensive line and all over defense. I feel like that defense is pretty old, a very old defense as of right now, but we'll see what they can do going forward. I like the 49ers. I like their coaching staff. I can't put them in anything less than B tier for that reason. Buccaneers right now. Okay, Buccaneers. We'll put you guys in D tier. You're saying, look at these NFC South teams. We have Falcons, Carolina Panthers, Saints, and Buccaneers all in D and F tier. That just shows how how much of an open division that is right now, because you're looking at them. 3 out of 4 of these teams just brought in a new head coach, and a couple of these teams brought in a new quarterback and GM. So they're kind of all in this rebuilding phase. That entire division, who was once great a few years ago, is now arguably the worst in football. Now, Buccaneers are going to own that division this next year, obviously. We're looking at the future here. Tom Brady's got 1-2 more years left in him. Actually, we can't say that very confidently. The guy's probably going to play for another 10 years. But I like their GM and head coach, their new signing as head coach, bringing in Todd Bowles. And Kyle Trask is not going to be the future quarterback for the Buccaneers. Let's cut straight to it. The guy had a great year in Florida. Probably not going to continue his great career in Florida as well, in Tampa Bay. But with that being said, they have a stacked roster of mostly all old guys. Just don't see this team lasting very long. Buccaneers are kind of in the spot where they're a bubble ready to pop. They're a team that might be great now, but they're going to fall apart just as fast as they went from a bad team to a Super Bowl contending team. They're going to fall apart just as fast. For that reason, I have them in D tier right now. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans. I really love this Tennessee Titans team. Great coaching staff. I like their offense right now. We're putting them in B tier. I love their young defense as well. Tennessee Titans, I just love this team. John Robinson has done a great job as a GM, really turned that team around. Mike Vrabel has been one of the best head coaches over the last 5 years. Ryan Tannehill really, honestly, works. He might be the franchise guy. He could play for them for the next 10 years. We really don't know. Ryan Tannehill, obviously, he's more of a tier 3, tier 4 quarterback, but like we've seen, that's good enough to win a Super Bowl. I would say the same about Matthew Stafford being a tier 3, tier 4 quarterback. Now, Derek Henry might be in his prime. His longevity is kind of an issue, and we say this just about with every running back. Don't know how long he's going to be with them. AJ Brown's been in and out of injuries. I'm looking at their defense here. Jeffrey Simmons and Harold Landry, I'm going to say it right now, they're going to make one of the best pass rushing duels in football in the next few seasons. They will. People forget. People are overlooking how great of pass rushers Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons actually are. And that's the reason why they should have beat the Bengals in the AFC divisional round. And they sacked them like 19, 11, some crazy amount of times. I think it was like 9 times or something like that. They've built one of the best pass rushing duels, and they're going to be good for some time now. Next up, my Minnesota Vikings. Another team that has a new GM, a new head coach, and a quarterback that's aging. We're going to put them in C tier. We have a lot of young players to be excited about. Justin Jefferson, got to build the team around him. KJ Osborne, same goes for him. Irv Smith Jr., another player. You just have to build around this pass game. I love the GM and head coach that my Minnesota Vikings have brought in, and it looks like a promising future. The reason why I can't put them in anything higher than C tier right now is I just have questions about the future players coming in for the Vikings. We screwed ourselves over in salary cap by restructuring a lot of contracts. We're going to probably be screwed when it comes to draft picks because we're kind of picking middle of every round, it feels like. Now we're picking 12th. That's pretty high compared to a lot of draft picks that the Vikings have been having, kind of just putting themselves in a bad position in order to turn the team around. We have so many needs. We're a very old defense. This defense is a bubble ready to pop, and our defense is going to fall apart, and it's not like it was good in the last couple of years anyways. So there's a lot of questions when it comes to the Vikings future. We're going to have to see how they handle the quarterback position and really see how this head coach and GM can kind of turn this team around from being from being one of the worst this last season to actually being a Super Bowl contender. But there's a lot to be excited about, so we're putting him in C tier. Next up, and the final one, 32nd one, we have the Washington Commanders, another F team. I'm sorry, Commanders fans. There is nothing to be excited of. These teams, for the Panthers and Commanders, there's absolutely nothing to be excited about here. First of all, your GM has done nothing for the Commanders so far. He really hasn't. The GM has done terrible draft picks for the team. I mean, you can argue the best one was Chase Young. Yeah, anybody would have drafted Chase Young second overall. You can't really say that was the GM being a great GM there. And then on top of that, Ron Rivera's on the hot seat. The guy's entering the end of his career. The guy's on the final chapter. Same goes for Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz trading for Carson Wentz was stupid. And he's going to end his career there in the next couple seasons, maybe the next year, to be honest with you. They're picking 11th overall, and they need pretty much every position. So that's going to be tough for them to fill this in this draft class. Really, the only thing to be excited about for the Commanders right now is their defensive front. And how long is that going to last? How long are the defensive front going to actually last? I mean, we've seen them fight on the sidelines. The team is a complete disaster right now, and they're going to fall apart. They're going to honestly be a middle of the pack team this next year. Looking at the future, they're probably going to fall apart when you're looking at the Commanders. Curtis Samuel has not worked out for them. And Terry McLaurin, I mean, Terry McLaurin should honestly request a trade at this point. I don't know if he signed a new contract for them. I'm not sure, but again, he should want to leave, Terry McLaurin. So this is my final tier list for all 32 teams, ranking them based off of the future for the NFL franchise. And some questionable ones here. I mean, this is mostly based off of my opinion, and I brought in some facts here and some objective statements here. So you see a lot of AFC West teams up here and then NFC South teams down here. Kind of shows you how stacked of a division one is and how open of a division the other one is. So let me know what all of you guys think about this kind of tier list going on right here. So thank you all for tuning into the show.